Okay, folks, let's get started. We're going to talk in this video topic about two basic approaches to the mens rea requirement. There's an older approach, but it still persists in some corners of the criminal law, and we'll call it the culpability approach. And then there is a newer approach that is typically called the elemental approach, or element analysis. Okay, by newer, I mean it really was only well established in the middle of the 20th century, so newer may be a relative term here. In this video topic, I'm going to describe both approaches and point out to you where you're likely to see each of them at work. By the end of the video, you should be able yourselves to start spotting these each of these two different approaches to mens rea at work in different doctrines of the criminal law, and you should be able to use that skill as we move ahead through the semester. So let's jump in. We'll begin with the traditional culpability approach. According to this approach to mens rea, the criminal law just asks if an actor is blameworthy. Doesn't really ask more precisely if the defendant had the designated blameworthy state of mind for each element of the offense. It's just, is this a bad guy? During this crime, did this person show some kind of blameworthy criminal state of mind? And if so, we're done. An example of this approach comes from a famous case involving gas meters. So you see pictured here on the slide a coin-operated gas meter. If you're a little cold, you want an hour's worth of heat in the house, you go down and pump a few coins into it, and you can get some heat for a little while. So there's a gentleman, Cunningham, who decides this would be a great source of income, and so he goes down into the basement of a house where the gas meter is, and he breaks into it, kind of rocking it on its footings, and ends up breaking into the coin box, but he also loosens the gas meter from the pipes, and so it starts leaking. Well, this is bad news for a lot of people, but it nearly asphyxiates a person who's upstairs in the house. Cunningham is charged under a statute that prohibits somebody from, quote, maliciously causing a person to take a noxious thing. The judge in the jury instruction tells the jury that to satisfy this maliciously requirement, the prosecution only has to prove that the defendant acted wickedly and didn't in particular intend for the noxious thing, that is the gas, to affect somebody elsewhere in the building. He did intend to steal. He didn't intend to poison anybody. But according to the trial court, that was enough. So the trial court here was following the culpability approach. The appellate court later on reversed because it took the other approach. Now, there are many traces of this culpability approach that are scattered around the criminal law in corners here and there. One of those traces, an important one, is called felony murder doctrine, and we'll talk about that later. Another one, arguably, is something called transferred intent. Let's say that Ron tries to hit Charles. He swings and misses, but he hits Jeff instead. He's charged with assault against Jeff. Ron's defense is, hey, wait a minute, I didn't have the purpose of striking Jeff. I had the purpose of striking Charles. The defense won't work because we transfer the intent aimed at one victim over to the other victim. These are called bad aim cases. Now let's look at the elemental approach. The idea here is that you subdivide the crime into elements, and then you match the designated mens rea to each element. So you start with your objective elements. That could be conduct, it could be a result, it could be attendant circumstances. For instance, let's say you have a crime that's called assaulting a police officer, inflicting serious bodily injury. Okay, the assault, that would be conduct. You swing and trying to hit somebody. The inflicting serious bodily injury, that would be a result. And then the police officer, the fact that I'm swinging and I'm assaulting a police officer, that would be the attendant circumstance, the fact that the person's a police officer. So if you're proving this crime under the element analysis, you'd have to ask separately for each of those, for the act, for the conduct. What's the mens rea involved there? For the result, the inflicting serious bodily injury, what's the mens rea there? Do you have to know, or do you have to have that purpose to inflict that bodily injury? And then you ask finally about the attendant circumstance. What's the mens rea you need for the fact that this is a police officer who is the recipient of the assault and the injury? Now, a famous example of this element analysis is in the case Regina versus Faulkner. It actually goes back 1877, so a pretty early case. And luckily, it involves a pirate. You got to have a good pirate case in every 1L, of course. I mean, does torts give you a pirate? Well, I'll let them answer that. Okay, Faulkner is a pirate. He is down below decks. Of course, he's looking for the rum. The rum is stored below decks, but it's not in a lit area. So he's down there, he's got his knife, he works his way into the barrel, and he's got a little bit of an opening, and it's starting to spill out. So he's trying to drink the rum as it sprays out of the side of the barrel, and then he's trying to plug it with a bit of leather, but he can't see. He's trying to do all this stuff in the dark. And so, of course, what does he do? He lights a match. But then as he's lighting the match, he fumbles it, the effects of the rum, and it drops onto the floor where all the rum has spilled out, and it catches on fire. The entire ship burns. So the question is, what mens rea is relevant here if he's charged with arson? Does he have to have intended to burn the ship down, to destroy the ship? Or is it good enough to say, well, he was doing something malicious. He had a criminal intent. That is, he was intending to steal rum below decks. And the appellate court in Faulkner says you have to have the relevant state of mind for destroying the ship, an arson charge. So it's not enough just to be generally a bad guy or to generally have a criminal intent. You have to match the intent to the crime as charged. One example of this element analysis at work is a doctrine called the Concurrence Requirement. The idea here is that the relevant state of mind has to concur, has to happen at the same time as the relevant criminal act. So the actus reus and the mens rea have to overlap in time. They have to be happening at the same time. Here's an example. Let's suppose that Ron is out at the firing range. Oh, there he is right in the middle. And he's behaving properly. There's no negligence involved. But along the way, tragically, Charles strays into the line of fire and is killed. Ron's shot kills him. Ron rushes up and he learns that Charles is dead, and then he's rejoicing. Woohoo! I finally killed my enemy. I've been hoping for years that I could kill Charles, and now it's happened. I didn't know he was there, but now that I know it, this is great. There's no crime here under the element analysis because the act, that is shooting Charles, is separated in time from the culpability, the conscious desire to kill Charles. So keep your eyes open for these two different approaches to mens rea, the element analysis or the culpability approach. You'll see them pop up in different criminal law doctrines along the way. See you for our discussion next time.